So I'm going to talk about two stories today that we kind of get from the scriptures that we read. The scriptures from Ezekiel and from Genesis. In Ezekiel, we see basically the story of Israel through the eyes and the words of the prophet Ezekiel. We're going to talk a little bit about that and kind of the realizations and the visions of God that they received through that, or a vision of God. And then in Genesis, we're going to talk about one of my favorite people in the Bible, Hagar, who is somebody who's so overlooked, but somebody of absolute strength and vision. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. So I'm going to start with Ezekiel. Get a handle on this story of Israel through the eyes of Ezekiel. And throughout the Hebrew Scriptures, we see, now keep in mind the Hebrew Scriptures were written by the Israelites for the most part, so it's not surprising that we see them saying, we are God's chosen people. I have a feeling if I were to write a book about God in my life right now, I would say I'm a chosen person, right? It's easy to say. But this whole group of people very easily adopted that we are the chosen ones. And sometimes through that, there's a sense of entitlement. There's a sense of, hey, we're already selected. There's not much we do. And I think sometimes when we're chosen, when we're purposed, we have that sense of obligation. I'm going to do what I'm called to do. And other times we got, I'm chosen. I've got it taken care of. And so this first part of Ezekiel, we see the entitled Israel. And they're just going off the hooks, not doing anything that we are to believe that God was calling them to do. And we hear that through the frustrations of Ezekiel, a prophet. I'm so glad. I made a joke earlier that I'm a preacher, not a prophet. I'm so glad I was called to preach and not prophesy because, man, they had a tough job. And so we see Ezekiel consistently for 23 chapters. It's a tough read, I'm going to tell you. Ezekiel 1 through 23, God just saying, you better get it right. God's going to judge you. This is horrible. You guys are terrible. That's my translation of it, but it was kind of like that. That was kind of the prophecies. You're living in rebellion. You're living in sin. You are basically Babylonian, or Babylon was the prostitute, and you as Israel are whoring out to Babylon. That's his words, not mine. So it's like these really intense prophecies that Ezekiel is saying time and time and time again. And then we see chapter 24, sure enough, Babylon comes in and seizes Jerusalem. Now see, that is really important in this story because in Jerusalem was the temple. And we think, oh, that would be awful if someone came in and took over Folsom and took our church. That would be horrible, right? It's nothing like that. Because for the Israelites, God dwelled in the temple. That is where God lived. We have this kind of omniscient view of God, that God is here, God is there, God is everywhere, right? No. For Israel, God lived in the temple, specifically in the Holy of Holies in the temple. So that when the temple was destroyed, not only did Israel go into diaspora, they were just completely like no place to call their home, but they didn't know where God was anymore. God had left the temple. God was houseless, so to speak. And so it wasn't just that they were in the wilderness themselves, but they were in this spiritual wilderness of God has left us on our own. As a people, who we are. And there was this deep sense of hopelessness. Where is God now? Now, I know that is not a foreign question to you. My guess is every single one of you in this place has said at one time or another, where is God now? Where is God in this? Why has God left me here? As a people, Israel, were asking those questions. They became a people looking forward without even being certain that God would ever return. How can this be? How can God leave God's people? How can we be chosen and not even know where our God is? We'll pause there and go to the story of Hagar. Hagar had a tough life. I'm going to say that. We look at our Bible heroes, so to speak. When I was a kid, I sang a song. I never really got the whole meaning of it, but maybe some of you can relate. Sing this song, Father Abraham. Anybody know it? And you had to say, Father Abraham, and many sons, no daughters. Abraham, and one of them is over you. So let's just praise the Lord. Right arm, and then we do this. And we end up doing this. Turn around. It was a weird song. It was just a weird song. But having said that, as a kid, we learned that Father Abraham was this great descendant, and God used Abraham to bring the people of God through history. So at this point in the story, Abraham had not yet had his name changed, and he was Abram, meaning, I had it last week, meaning first father, I think, or something father, and then Abraham was father of many nations. So he was not yet the father of many nations, but God said, I'm going to give you so many descendants that you can't even count them. They can be like the stars in the sky. And God said that. And Abram took him at his word. And then Sarai, Abram's wife, said, oh man, I can't have kids. 10 years went by where they believed on this promise, and Sarai could not have a kid. And so Sarai did what anybody would do, of course, took her servant and said, here, Abram, take Hagar. Now, I'm going to say something here. I think sometimes we skip past stories in the Bible because they're really uncomfortable, because our biblical story has to do with things like rape gifts, which is really what that is. With slavery, with bondage, with me saying, here, I don't care about this person so much, take them. And that's horrible. But I think that's something that we need to see in this story. Because if we just elevate, and I've heard people say, well, that was custom back then. No, it was slavery. It was rape. So let's just say that. Let's just get that uncomfortable elephant out of the corner. Because it's Hagar's story, and she deserves to have it all lifted up. And so Sarai gives Hagar to Abraham, and she gets pregnant, and she has a son, Ishmael. And now Sarai is jealous. And now Sarai is contemptuous. And now she is like, can't even stand having her in the household. The way that she looks at me, she thinks she's so much better than me, because she can have a kid, whatever. She's talking to Abram like this, and Abram says, hey, she's your slave. Do what you want with her. And so Sarai started treating her horribly, abusive, I would say. So much to the fact that Hagar ran away to the desert, a place of death, a place that kills, not brings life. And Sarai ran away with Ishmael. And they were on death's doorstep when an angel came to her and said, no, you are blessed. You are bringing a blessing forth. You will be a mother of many. Go back. Israel and Hagar both found themselves in the time of the wilderness, the time of hopelessness, the time of loneliness, the time of feeling abandoned and abused by God. But God met them where they were. That's what we can know about God. Some people will abuse you in the name of God, just like Sarai did to Hagar, just like Abram did to Hagar as well. Sometimes our own actions will lead us to a place of the wilderness, just like Israel, who so flippantly took the purpose of God in their lives and ignored it to the place where it was taken away. In these stories, we have a mother who has been abused, misused, and discarded by religion and by people of power and privilege. What do we do with that? In both cases, we can learn from their experiences and their perceptions. In Ezekiel 20, some chapters later, they were able to return to Israel and rebuild the temple. And there are a lot of chapters, and as much as Ezekiel's pronouncements on Israel is kind of a rough read, then there's chapter after chapter of here's how you divide the land, 12 tribes get this many cubits, and this is how you build these buildings, and the temple's going to be built, here are the dimensions. That's a rough read too. Diagram, blueprints, all this. Here's exactly how to do it. But what we see is the temple is rebuilt. And once again, they know where God is. But here's the interesting thing. It's not the temple that is named. It is the entire city that is named Jehovah Shammah. God is here. And I just wonder if this was one of the beginning times where they realized God just does not reside in the Holy of Holies. God resides in the temple. And God resides in the city. And God resides with us and sees us through. Yaweh, Shammah, God is here. What a powerful realization that must have been. In Genesis, Hagar having met at the lowest point of her lows, true God, who shows deep concern, who declares that she is a chosen mother, and that Ishmael has a deep purpose, and that she is valuable. She recognizes that God, the God who she could have easily blamed for all the mistreatment in her life, the God that seemed to lead her to this exilic time, was actually right there in the desert with her. And that she was not alone. El Rohi, the God who sees me. Not sees all, but sees me. I think sometimes we get into that. Yeah, of course God is here. God's everywhere. Yeah, of course God sees me. God sees everyone. But what if we just stopped and said, here, God is here. And God sees me. And God sees you. God sees you. God cares deeply. What if we got there? God sees me singularly. God cares deeply for me and my circumstances and my fears and my hurts and my hopes and my dreams. God sees me. God sees me in my weird Enneagram 7 ADHD self. Yeah, God sees me. And God sees you in every specific part of your life. Sometimes it feels like God is left, and it's easy to declare that we deserve it. But Jehovah Shammah, God is here. In this very place, God is here. Sometimes it's easy to feel like God has abandoned us, maybe even abused us, after deeming somebody else more worthy. Sometimes it's easy to feel misused and no longer needed by the story of God, just like Hagar. But El-Roi, God sees you. No matter your circumstance today, I want you to know that we serve a God so vast and so big that we cannot run from the presence of God. And I recognize that life surrounds us sometimes with what feels like enemies, with what feels like failures, with what feels like a maze with no way out. But I believe, and I love that song, it may feel like I'm surrounded. I'm surrounded by enemies, abandonment, hopelessness, death. It may feel like I'm surrounded, but I'm surrounded by you. I once had someone tell me at one of the deepest hurtful moments in my life that God's grace is so big that even when you turn your back on God, God is staring you right in the face. Jehovah Shammah. God is here. God is here and sees you. Sees your needs, sees your hopes, sees your potentials, sees all that you are and all that you can be. God sees you. God sees you. God sees you. And God